Right, we'll move on to our next keynote presentation. It's my pleasure to introduce someone that knows housing digital well and someone that and has digital knows Samantha Young quite well. Sam is the Director of People, Technology and Innovation at Irwell Valley Homes. Sam, feel free to take over your screen.
So yeah, as Jeff said, I'm Sam Young. I currently work for Irwell Valley Homes, which is about 7,500 homes across Greater Manchester. My role there is Director for People, Technology and Innovation. I work as part of the executive team, and I've got all sorts of things in my portfolio. So technology, business improvement, performance, health and safety, HR, you name it really, all those sorts of things. I've got kind of a bit of a foot in all camps across what we do. And my personal background is in technology. So I've worked with or in technology for my entire career. That started off in financial services. I've done public sector, health and housing. So quite an array of different things. So what I'm going to take you through really is a little bit of my views about AI and where we're at, and a bit of what we're doing at Irwell Valley. There's probably nothing absolutely earth-shattering in here, but hopefully there's some interesting things for everybody to hear. So if I just move this on. So at Irwell Valley, this is our plan. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but we're very much around kind of enabling people to live well in their homes, and that's what we're about, and that's what all of our services are about, aligned to the TSMs, etc. But what we've got within our plan is a commitment to improvement, and that improvement is in these three circles at the bottom there. The first one being a lot of what we're spending time and thinking about, and the discussions today will be about. So using that knowledge of our homes and our customers to actually target and tailor services. So we're providing the most effective services we can within the financial envelope we've got. And across on the right-hand side, making sure that we are efficient in what we're doing and that we've got real service, process and digital innovation in that. So that's kind of the Irwell Valley overview. So AI, we talk about it loads. So it's definitely improved efficiency. It's definitely improved effectiveness. It's definitely around customer service and what we can do in that. And for me, a big fundamental of it is it's around decision making and what it can do to support those human decisions. But there's lots of talk, and I'm sure you've seen this everywhere around it. So AI in generative AI terms is actually, it's trying to solve things we don't know yet. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. We've got varying types of AI, but really AI isn't something for its own sake. It's helping as an enabler. It's there to help other things. It's at the moment for housing, I think, and quite a lot of other industries, is actually a solution that's waiting to find its actual problem. And lots of people are trying to pinpoint those problems and put new solutions in place around them, but I think we haven't quite found it yet. And there's lots of talk about will AI replace jobs, and I think the fundamentally it comes down to humans who are using AI as part of their jobs will replace humans who are not. But I don't think anybody at this point is thinking that AI becomes this autonomous thing on its own. So AI for me isn't new. It's been around, I think it was 1950-ish that people first started playing with AI in its different forms. And there's lots of different kind of varieties of it. So machine learning, so that's just basic algorithms, that's rules based still, but it learns some rules and then it applies them and comes out with some different outcomes. Neural networks are just lots of that, doing it on lots of data. And then we're now moving into this natural language processing. So that's, for me, that's the difference now, is this ability for computers to understand human intention rather than just kind of being able to take a rule. And a lot of what we're seeing, I think, and a lot of what people are talking about sits in this kind of what I'd call narrow AI, which is the repetitive tasks side of things. And the bit that people are scared of is when we think about that kind of super AI, which is that, computers are now better than humans at doing human things. So generative AI is what's creating the buzzword, I think, at the moment, because AI is automation, and we all do automation to a level. And we all kind of take triggers to a level, but generative AI is what's really causing us to have a conversation about it now. But that is quite a different thing to some of the other previous AIs, because it is that ability. True generative AI does learn from itself, and it doesn't have rules-based programming. So it looks at lots and lots of data and comes up with its own opinions. and it generates original content. And that's the key difference. And there's two graphs there, and you can get as many of these graphs off the internet as you want. So those were just two I picked. But if you look at that first one, the difference, and the reason we're talking about it now, is that ChatGPT reached 1 million users in less than a week when it launched in 2022. And it's now got 100 million users weekly, and that's why the conversation's happening. It's a bit like when we saw Google come out with search originally. It's a bit like the Alexa Siri conversations. It's a bit like when Apple took over the market. It's actually becoming consumer driven in terms of a conversation. And Gartner are predicting that by 2026, which is not very far away now at all, 80% of organizations will have deployed some form of generative AI, either an app or an API. So using it to help talk between systems. So this is where we're at then, and where we're taking it. So for me, the AI opportunity is around, and the new AI opportunity, rather than the ones that have been around for a while, is delivering value from our data. So if you think about data kind of reporting, etc., we've all got reports, we've all probably got Power BI to some extent, we've all got those static things that we look at. It's now taking that into the information, which again, probably lots of us have done in terms of thinking about making those connections, understanding cause and effect, and answering simple questions. And the new kind of areas are around predicting outcomes based on those complex patterns, using those to nudge behaviours, to change outcomes. So actually trying to use intelligence to change a human outcome for people, and that kind of targeting and tailoring of our services. But the real true generative AI bit is changing the course of outcomes that we don't even know that we don't know yet. So it's beyond the things that we can sit here and think about, and that's what starts to make it exciting and the future. But it is way in the future, I think, still for a lot of organisations at that level. In terms of our IVH approach, and what we're certainly trying to do is put in interventions at the earliest points in our process. So I think about reporting. Instead of having a report at the end, when a customer rings in and they report a repair, let's use that for an example. If they've got a complaint open, we've done 3 repairs in that property already, we know they've got a particular vulnerability, it takes us down a different path in terms of how we act, because it flags that to us at that time. And that's where we're trying to get it really built in early to the processes, rather than just thinking about the data at the end. We've talked about risk already, and there's hundreds of risks, particularly if you're going to go to generative AI. And some of those are quite, profound, really, and, more than we're going to talk about in 10 minutes. But, effectively, people are actually emotional, irrational, and impulsive at the heart. And the more we want computers to replicate human behaviour, is that really what we want them to do? And that leads to what's termed now as hallucinations. So generative AI coming out with all sorts of things and thinking it's doing the right thing, but actually it's taken on really weird personas and it's doing strange things. And that's what people are seeing. That's what makes the news. That's what makes it a bit scary. There's also a couple of things from a human perspective around loss of skills. People think that generative AI will take away their skills and de-skill them. And there's also the part around lazy thinking, as I've termed it here. So, how much do we want people to use AI instead of actually applying their own thinking and logic? And there's been some examples where people have put reports out, for instance, put them through ChatGPT, not read them properly, and it's caused all sorts of issues. So where are we from an IVH perspective? So we've been on quite a big transformation journey over 2-3 years actually now. So we started off looking at our data, and now what we did then was we looked at our organisational design principles, so how we want to structure the organisation, what that looks like, what our organisational development looks like, what our values are. We've looked at our digital design principles, and we've moved now to fully in the cloud. We simplified our digital architecture. We put APIs in place, get things talking to each other. So open APIs was a big part of that. So we've implemented lots of new technologies, our core foundations. We've process mapped everything in the organisation at least once, and that's a continual improvement journey for us. So we've got it in 3 strands. We've done the customer journey and everything that a customer might interact with us. We've got the colleague journey, and we've got the property life cycle, and that's how we've structured it. So we've got that, we understand our frictions, we use kind of lean systems methodology in terms of doing that. And that is not saying we're perfect. This is our starting point, and it's a continual improvement journey. And we've also set out that continual improvement, how we get innovation from across the organisation. So we've put in place mechanisms for how anybody in the organisation can kind of flag and say, I think we could do this better. And then that comes in and we review that, and that would go then through into a piece of work. So we've kind of looked at our operating principles, our design of each of our processes, the design of our technology, and how we create innovation within the organisation. So we've been on quite a journey for the last couple of years that have got us to a place where we can start to think about this a bit more. So where we are now, we've already talked about AI, particularly around being a risk. So what we've done definitely is update our acceptable use and IT security policies to specifically cover AI, specifically covering things like ChatGPT and the open platforms. We've created a separate AI policy as well, which governs what we do and how we use AI. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. We've done lots of training and learning within the digital teams around Copilot and Microsoft 365 integration with Copilot. That's our preferred method at the moment. That's because we use a lot of Power Apps, and we're quite heavily into kind of Microsoft architecture and what we're doing. So we've done quite a lot of learning. We've got the MS Fabric for our data lakes, whatever you want to call them, in the background. So that's where we've got our data all coming together. From that, we've got a lot of Power BI reporting, both static reporting and kind of slider asking the questions reporting. We're then moving more into what you might term AI around narrow examples of it. So things like universal credit verifications and automating that process. Things like automated arrears escalations. So again, it's not taking humans out of it, but using predictive thinking around payment patterns, spotting when payment patterns change, and putting in tailored and different communications based on preferences and what we know works. We've done some work using AI around tenancy agreement checking. Don't know what other people are like, but over many years, we've got many customers with many different, slightly different agreements. We haven't done a consolidation of that. So we've been going through and using AI to actually go in, read the tenancy agreement, check the right names on it, check the numbers, check it's linked to the right accounts. So kind of doing a lot of data cleansing using AI. We're also doing a piece around data loss prevention using AI at the moment. So scanning everything that we've got in unstructured folders, finding out what it is, looking to see if it's got personal information in it, making sure it gets structured if it needs, deleted if it needs. We've got sentiment processing across our customer satisfaction using AI. And we've started doing quite a lot more with Power Apps in terms of that automated event tracking, spotting something's happened, automating tasks out to the right people to say, this has happened, this tenancy's gone on and it's not got these things and it needs to have them, go and do it. So quite a lot of automated, I guess what you might call process adherence type things, spotting where things are maybe going wrong in the moment and doing something about it in the moment rather than waiting for reporting. Our kind of approach next is around small iterative trials, and that is where we're going with this. We're not trying to do anything big bang. So things like we're pretty sure there's going to be something around complaints we can use AI for in terms of predicting where complaints come in and maybe putting preventative measures in first on those. We haven't done that yet. We have got some stuff around data reviews, frauds, outliers going on. Testing's an interesting one. So we talked about the mystery shopper. We haven't done it for mystery shopper, but we're definitely doing it for when we upgrade a process or we change a process for testing that through. We definitely think there's some opportunity around health and safety and looking at patterns and prevention of health and safety. And one of the things we're doing at the moment, and a big piece of work we're doing at the moment, is that customer feedback loop. So understanding where the failure demands happened anywhere in that customer journey and making sure that's fed back into teams so we can make those changes. So lots of little small projects is what I would say we're doing. Lots of interesting areas. And over time, we'll see where that takes us. I think what we don't know yet is where ultimately AI will be. But where we're trying to get to is that know our homes, know who lives in them, and use that combined knowledge to balance our efficiency operationally with our effectiveness for the customers. And absolutely, I guess if you're talking future, one of the things I'm sure everybody hates across is that having to complete the system. So you're doing that interaction, you get the pull down box, you have to click the right thing, you have to do this. So ultimately, where can AI take us in terms of making it more natural language for our colleagues, which then codifies up to what we need it to be. So that's where we're at. I know I'm talking fast. We've put lots and lots into our data, and we think AI can help us be more than just with some of what that data is, but we're not there yet. Policy and approach, just very quickly, because I am running out of time. We've absolutely said all use cases have to be approved, so this is not a free-for-all for people to do it. We've absolutely said colleagues cannot go and use ChatGPT and put all our data into an open public platform and see what happens. At this point in time, we don't want people to be able to do that. And we've absolutely said in our policy that we need to be more aware of the human risks that are out there from sophisticated social engineering, which is using AI quite extensively. Our approach then we've based around the UK design principles. So you've got them on the slide in front of you there. I think from a supplier perspective, one of the things that's interesting in here is that ability to actually understand how the AI is working and be able to explain those algorithms it's using, which is that appropriate transparency and explainability piece. So it might be learning itself, but we still have to know what it's done to be able to stand by or change the answer it's come out with. So that will be quite a lot of discussion, I think, with suppliers as this really becomes generative AI, around how we can make sure we still understand how the IT is making some of that decisions and the algorithms it's using to be able to kind of explain that to people. And having those redress mechanisms, so making sure if something has happened as a result of an automated process, a piece of AI, that actually we can make that change, just like we do with GDPR and other things, that we're in a position to go back and do it. So up here, this is just to give you a flavour really of each of the use cases. When we look at them, these are the things that we consider. So the appropriateness of using AI, it's not always the right tool. Ethics, is it the right thing for us to move forward with from an ethics point of view? What will our stakeholders think? And who do we need to involve from a stakeholder perspective? What's the training that's going to be needed? How does it integrate suitably into our systems? Is there any thoughts around digital inclusion? Is this going to have an adverse impact anywhere? How are we going to measure the performance of it? What are the safeguards we're going to put in? So the human interventions to make sure people can stop it if it's going to do something that we don't want it to. Data security we've talked about, and obviously the GDPR implications. So those are the things that each of those use cases we look at. So I'm at the end, I'll be glad. Summary, what we're trying to do. So opportunity, definitely there. Improved efficiency, enhanced customer services, enhanced decision making, definitely where we think we can continue to use AI. But we want to be really thoughtful about how we do that. We're not trying to use it in isolation to other things, or making the assumption that AI is the answer to all problems. It's probably not at the moment. We're learning as we go along, using that kind of best practice, start small, iterative approach. And we're absolutely aware and upping all of our kind of communications to people around digital security, and the need for increased vigilance about what people are doing, because ultimately AI might be a computer thing, but all this is going to live or die by people, not technology. And that is me. Thank you.
Wow, fantastic. That was an incredible presentation. I did have a question, but it's going to be picked up on already by Becky Morris. So I'll jump to Becky. Sorry, I'll jump to Becky first, who put a question in the chat. Becky is the head of strategic partnering at Peabody, and Becky asks, do you have any plans to bring AI more into your HR space? And if so, what area do you see it being most beneficial?
So yes, so obviously recruitment's the area that lots of people are talking about AI at the moment. I actually think there's probably something slightly different where it would be quite beneficial in terms of understanding colleagues, and I'm going to use the word performance, but understanding skill sets of colleagues and where we can support them more and how we can develop those colleagues to be the best that they can be within the organisation, as well as using AI potentially around how we can take some of the barriers away that do exist for people with different disabilities in what we're doing. So we have somebody who works at IVH who is blind, works in our contact centre. So they have an awful lot of work we need to do with them around scripting and things so that they can use our systems, which is all brilliant in terms of what we do. But I think there's more we could use AI to support some of those individuals. So I think the traditional areas are going to be around recruitment, and that's kind of the easier sell. I think the more interesting is how we can use it to actually work with colleagues to develop their skill sets and their performance, and work with them to look at where AI can actually enhance what they do, particularly where we've got individuals who've got barriers.
Thank you, Sam. Next up, we've got a question from Sarah McNeil. Sarah, if you can just introduce yourself and then ask your question.
Hiya, thanks so much. Hiya, Sam. Thanks for that. It was brilliant. I'm Sarah McNeil. I'm marketing manager for ClixieFix. I don't know what you know about ClixieFix. We're a defect management system. So we're kind of helping UK house builders and housing associations up and down the UK with their aftercare, customer care and everything. So very much about communication, and really keen to kind of get some help with AI off the back of that. So really enjoyed what you'd said. And yeah, it was really interesting. One of the questions I've got is about like, have you had your customers that have been aware of you using AI? And if so, have you had any pushback off the back of that?
Yeah, so where it's a customer process, so we've got quite an active resident scrutiny panel and quite an active what we call our customer offer panel. So a scrutiny panel work like our internal, like another internal audit in terms of what they do. Our customer offer panel do a lot of looking at our services, looking at our performance. So we do when we're going to do these things, they're kind of one of our stakeholders on my little chart. We do take it to them and we explain, particularly not necessarily all the back end stuff. We don't tell them that we're going to use it to look at tenancy agreements. But if I look at like our rent process, we do talk to them about what it looks like, how that's going to work, and what the safeguards are. So we involve that group of people and they're fully aware and sign off on what we're doing. We also involve kind of the EDI groups. So there's a subset of our customers that look at kind of EDI things specifically. So if it's like the online portal and what we're going to change there, they'll look at it. So they're not, we don't brand it. We're going to put in generative AI. We talk to people very much in just basic terms about what we're doing, that, you know, we're going to help support customers by talking to them earlier. This is the sort of communication they're going to get. That will be via text message if that's their preference. That will be via letter if that's their preference. One of the things, it's not AI, but is being able to translate, so make those messages actually in the language is something that we're looking at the moment. That's kind of a next step for us around that. So I don't know if that answers your question. So yes, they do know. Do we talk to them about AI? Not particularly. Do we talk to them about what we're doing in the processes so they understand what's going to be a computer, what's a person? Then yes, we do, where it affects them.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Sarah. Move on to another question now from Cliff Pringle, who's a risk manager at Home Group. Cliff.
Thank you. Hi, Sam. Thanks for the presentation. It was really impressive. The kind of technology that you're using and the potential uses. But I think what was more impressive actually was the persuasive powers that you must have had to draw upon to get yourselves to that point. I'm sure that's been a huge part of the work that you've done. Beyond the technology is just that kind of getting people to buy into it. So that's really impressive. But my question was round about, you kind of picked up on it slightly around kind of the audit trail and being able to show your workings essentially if something was to go wrong. I guess I'm just wondering whether or not you've been able to define who would be accountable in a situation where the use of AI led to an incorrect decision or a poor service delivery incident, something like that. Is it something that providers have kind of broached within the contracts you have with them, or is it something you deal with internally, or is it just still a bit of a grey area?
It's probably a bit of a grey area is the honest answer to the question. I think from an internal perspective, when we did all that process mapping, what we've clearly got is process owners. And as part of that process ownership, we've set those out as data owners as well. So actually, from an internal perspective, it's very clear who owns the process, and therefore the data and the decision making within that process. In terms of where that's with externals, to be honest, a lot of what we've done at the moment, we've done ourselves. And we've tested the water on a lot of this kind of using kind of Copilot and Power Apps and things that we've built ourselves. So we are not in that generative AI space at the moment, where we kind of don't understand the algorithms or the rules base that's being used. I think that is a real headache when we get into that generative AI space with suppliers, about how open suppliers will want to be about their code and how it's working, and how much we lose control of that ownership of the process and the data because of it. So I don't think I've got an answer to you, but that's where we're at.
No, it's the answer I was hoping to hear, because we're not there yet either, so it's good to know we're not alone. But thank you for that, cheers.
Okay, thanks for your question, Cliff. Do you have a question on the chat from Martin Hammond? First of all, brilliant presentation, Sam. Can you expand on your use of AI on unstructured data?
So yeah, so at the moment, what we're doing is we're actually using AI to scan all of our unstructured data that's obviously held digitally, and classify it. So we're using it effectively to do what's traditionally been the data labeling that many people do that nobody ever really did, in terms of saying this is confidential, this has got this is confidential, this is just a document. So we're using it to actually label, in effect, our unstructured data from a data loss prevention perspective, using that kind of tool set with Microsoft. But then what we're absolutely using it then is to flag where that data is held, let's say on somebody's shared drive, or some team's shared drive, and actually it shouldn't be. It should be held in the business system. So we're actually then using it to take that one step further. So where we've identified it as something, like say it's got customer data in it, we're then doing that cross check onto our business system to see whether that same piece of data or that same document is held there. And if not, we'll then look at that. And this is where the human intervention bit will come in. Certainly to start with, we'll look at then uploading that and removing it from our unstructured systems. So we're effectively using it to do a big data cleanse, in a way that I'm sure anybody who's worked with our IT, and you say to people, can you just go and delete all these old files, and 10 years later they're all just still sat in exactly the same place. So we're using it to kind of force that. Our priority absolutely being identifying where we think we've got critical business data that's not being held within one of our business systems. So that's where we're at the moment. Ultimately, we might use it for lots of other things, but that's what we're currently doing.
A question from Laurie Russell, who's the Data and Information Assistant at Longhurst Group. Laurie asks, do you have any tips for measuring performance, especially in terms of AI's impact on productivity?
So our framework for measuring success generally for any of our technology-enabled changes, we have a framework where we look at it in 4 ways. So we look at the impact for customers, we look at the impact for colleagues, we look at the impact on cost, and we look at the impact on carbon. Call it our 4 C's, just to help us remember it. So that's how we try and look at everything, and we try and be quite pragmatic about it in terms of looking at that, looking at it anecdotally, how it feels to customers and how it feels to colleagues, as well as kind of trying to put numbers around it, which I'm going to admit, our board kind of say, but that's very nice, but can you give me a number? And I kind of go, it's quite really difficult to put your finger on some of these things to get the number out, when one of the things that we're trying to use AI for, and this is maybe not a tip, but is to make us efficiently effective. Whereas one of the things that I think people can traditionally do is try and make the current ineffective process more efficient, if that makes any sense to anybody whatsoever. So it's trying to say, not only is it we can't necessarily do it cheaper, but we can get better outcomes. And that's where we find it difficult sometimes to put those numbers around it. But we think by looking at it through kind of 4 lenses of what's it feel like for customers, what's it feel like for colleagues, what's the impact on cost, real cost, and what's the impact on kind of sustainability and carbon, gives us quite a rounded view. The cost one, quite often, and I'm sure other people find this, and I talk about fingers and toes, quite often the improvement you make isn't it's 15 people, it's we've improved it, a small percentage for a lot of people. So sometimes those are cost avoidance, sometimes they're just value with a pound coin, sometimes it is actually we can remove a role here and we can put a role there to do something different, that kind of conversation. So the cost is not always taking cost out of the business, but it's about thinking about what we've freed people up to be able to do. I don't know if that helps or not, but that's what we're trying to do at the moment.
Kind of nicely alludes to the next question. Andrew Whittam, who is the project team data lead at Peabody, shoots straight to the bottom line with his question. What level of investment did you have to make to be able to carry out your AI work? What did it cost? Not sure if you can share that, Sam, but
well, I mean, where we've been at the last couple of years, so we've got a brand new housing management system. So we've moved to a new housing management system. We've moved to a new repairs planning system. We've moved to a new finance system. The only major system we haven't moved yet is actually our HR systems and people systems, but everything else we've moved to brand new systems. And that wasn't because we wanted to do AI, but by doing that, we've enabled ourselves to do AI on what we've got a lot more easily, if that makes sense. So we've invested into all of our core systems rather than investing into AI. A lot of what we've done then is then worked with our existing suppliers to kind of just move us on to the next bit of the product that maybe has got some AI in it. So there's been a little bit of uplift around some of the costs around that. And we have Microsoft E5 licensing, which enables us to have access to Power Apps. Obviously, we pay some costs around that, but Power Apps and Copilot, which is why what we're trying to do at the moment is utilise that current already sunk investment, if you like, into our Microsoft platforms to do as much of this as we can. So we haven't invested specifically for AI, but we've invested a lot across our entire technology platform to get us into a good place with open systems that can talk to each other, that we can put AI across the top of.
Did you have to bring in any specific expertise from the outside, whether through hiring somebody or getting an agency to help you or anything like that?
In terms of the AI piece, for Copilot, we've gone to Microsoft directly. So we've been working with Microsoft on Copilot and the Power Apps. So yeah, so we've used them. They do a carousel of their, I don't know who's on the call. They do a carousel quite often with a whole heap of providers, and actually going through that carousel process gets you lots of information about things to do and things to think about, because everybody's like these sessions talking about what they're doing. But that's what we've done at the moment. We've gone directly to Microsoft for that side of it. We did have a little bit of help from a third party around some of our setup of our data lakes. So again, we took a little bit of external consultancy in terms of that initial setup of our data lakes as well.
Thank you for your question, Andrew. I will summarise today's session. So we first heard from Scott Walker at Puzzle. Scott introduced Puzzle and their credentials. He then introduced the AI jungle concept and looked at the problems that need to be solved from a social housing viewpoint. He said that housing associations need to stop thinking of AI as a buzzword and more as a game changer. The future of customer experience in housing is deeply tied to the integration of AI across touch points and will be in the organisation's future. So it's worth looking at your tenant journey and where you could add AI into the process to make it more efficient and helpful for them. Scott finished with the question why AI matters. It's not just about technology, it's about thinking customer experience and delivering happiness, customer happiness. Next, we heard from Sam Young at Irwell Valley Homes. Irwell looks after just over 7,500 homes, and Sam herself has a foot across many departments. AI, Sam, is there to enable and help. It's not autonomous. It won't replace humans, but maybe humans using AI will replace those that don't. Sam split AI into repetitive tasks as well as generative AI. Generative AI is obviously the most exciting of the two. When you consider ChatGPT is now at 100 million users, and it's only 2 years old. So this is the future. But the opportunity now is to deliver value from data and to change the course of outcomes. There are, of course, a lot of risks, including ethics, imperfections and lazy thinking, which is why OWL started with small, narrow case studies to larger trials and step-by-step process. While AI is obviously all about computers, it is ultimately led by humans. And then finally, we heard from Peter Grimley at Clanmill Housing. Clanmill provide over 13,000 homes across Northern Ireland. And Peter represented a slightly alternative view to the other two presentations. He stated the state of the market and used the word disillusionment as putting investment in. It's good, but is it ever going to reach its promise? We need to look at AI integration from a customer's point of view always. Data governance, if we're implementing these AI systems, they might not be choosing the best outcomes with generative AI. And of course, the environmental impact is a massive issue in Northern Ireland. Clanmill have gone from on-premise to cloud solutions. Peter concluded with keeping it simple and small user cases strategy, echoed obviously by Sam as well. And to keep our eyes open to the challenges and, of course, limitations of AI. And finally, I'll finish things with a soulless plug for our live event, the Housing Innovation Show, which takes place on the 12th and 13th of February at the ICC, right in the city centre of Birmingham, where the National Housing Fed annual conference used to take place. So I hope to see you there. It's completely free of charge. Delegates are completely free of charge to attend if they work for a housing association or a house builder or an architect. If they work in housing, totally free of charge to attend. I hope to see you there. I think our audience target is 1,000. I think we're already over 700, so well on our target. So if you haven't already signed up, please do so. Obviously, we've got a live AI build as one of the presentations where we basically take a problem from the audience, create an AI solution, live AI hack live on stage. We've also got a live hack as well, I believe, where somebody in the audience gets their social account hacked live on the stage. So hopefully we'll be one of those people. I think we agree that before we do that, whatever that is. But hope to see you there. And once again, massive thank you for attending today. If you want to follow with any of our stakeholders, please feel free to do it directly through LinkedIn or message me and I can introduce you, or vice versa. But other than that, bang on 2 o'clock. We'll call it a day. Please enjoy the rest of your Wednesday afternoon.